My name is Sarah. I'm 35 years old. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood with my husband, John, and our 7-year-old son, Michael. John and I have been married for 10 years, a decade filled with love, laughter, and the kind of comfortable routine that comes with building a life together. We have a beautiful home with a white picket fence, a garden blooming with roses, and a cozy living room where we spend evenings watching movies or playing board games with Michael. John works long hours as a project manager at a construction firm, and I manage a small bookstore in town. Life, for the most part, has been good, or at least I thought it was. 6 months ago, everything started to change. We hired Alex, a 28-year-old man who answered our ad for a part-time housekeeper and gardener. With John's demanding job and my bookstore keeping me busy, we needed help around the house. Alex was a godsend at first. He was polite, hardworking, and had a quiet charm that made him easy to be around. He swept the floors, dusted the shelves, and trimmed the hedges with care. He even helped with Michael, picking him up from school when I was stuck at work or playing soccer with him in the backyard. Michael adored him, and John appreciated how reliable he was. Alex had a warm smile that seemed to light up the room, but he kept to himself, never sharing much about his personal life. At first, I didn't think much of Alex. He was just the guy who helped us keep our lives in order. I was too busy juggling work, parenting, and my marriage to notice him beyond his duties. But one evening, something shifted. I came home late from the bookstore after a long day of inventory. The house was quiet, Michael was asleep in his room, and John was still at the office, working on a big project. I found Alex in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a cup of tea and a worn paperback novel. The soft glow of the overhead light made the room feel warm and intimate. "Tough day?" he asked, looking up from his book with that easy smile. I sighed, dropping my bag on the counter. "You have no idea. The delivery guy mixed up half the order, and I spent hours sorting it out." He chuckled softly. "Sounds like you need a break. Want some tea?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Sure, why not?" That night, we talked for hours. Alex told me about his life. He grew up in a small town a few hours away, moved here for work, and didn't have any family nearby. He lived alone in a tiny apartment and spent his free time reading or hiking. There was a loneliness in his voice, but he didn't dwell on it. Instead, he asked me about my life, my dreams, the bookstore. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone was really listening to me. John was always so busy, and our conversations had become practical schedules, bills, Michael's school. With Alex, I felt seen. Looking back, that night was the beginning of everything. It was innocent at first, just a conversation between two people in a quiet kitchen. But it planted a seed, one I didn't even know was there until it started to grow. A few weeks later, John had to go on a business trip. He was gone for 3 days, leaving me, Michael, and Alex to manage the house. The first night we had dinner together, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and garlic bread. Michael chattered about his day at school, and Alex listened patiently, asking him questions about his favorite superheroes. After Michael went to bed, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the couch. Alex was tidying up the kitchen, but he joined me in the living room when he was done. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the armchair across from me. "Go ahead," I said, sipping my wine. I don't know why, but I felt nervous. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe it was the fact that we were alone with no John or Michael to fill the silence. We talked again, like we had that night in the kitchen. He told me about a hiking trail he'd found, and I shared stories about my college days, back when I dreamed of opening my own bookstore. The conversation flowed easily, and we laughed over silly things like the time Michael tried to help Alex weed the garden and ended up pulling out half the flowers. For the first time in months, I felt light, like the weight of my responsibilities had lifted, even if just for a moment. Then it happened. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the wine or the way Alex looked at me, his eyes soft and attentive. I leaned across the couch and kissed him. It was quick, just a brush of my lips against his, but it felt like the world stopped. My heart pounded as I pulled back, my face burning. "Oh, I'm sorry," I stammered. "That was a mistake. I shouldn't have." "It's okay," Alex said quietly, his voice steady. He didn't look angry or upset, just surprised. He held my gaze for a moment, then looked away. I stood up, muttering something about needing to check on Michael. My hands were shaking as I climbed the stairs. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the kiss in my mind. What had I done? I loved John. He was my husband, the father of my child, the man I'd built a life with. But that kiss, it woke something in me, something I hadn't felt in years, and that terrified me. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a moment of weakness. I promised I'd never let it happen again. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. John came back from his trip, and life went on as usual. I cooked dinner, we helped Michael with his homework, and we watched TV in the evenings. But inside, I was a mess. Every time I saw Alex, my stomach twisted. He was still the same polite, quiet, always smiling, but now there was something unspoken between us. We didn't talk about the kiss, but I could feel it in the air, like a secret we both carried. A few days later, John was working late again. Michael was at a friend's house for a sleepover, and Alex was finishing up in the garden. The kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, when he came inside to wash his hands. The silence between us was heavy, and I could feel his presence like a magnet. "Need any help?" he asked, drying his hands on a towel. I shook my head, keeping my eyes on the cutting board. "I'm good, thanks." But he didn't leave. He leaned against the counter, watching me. My heart raced and I knew I should ask him to go, but I didn't. Instead, I set the knife down and turned to face him. Before I could say anything, he stepped closer. And then we were kissing again this time. It wasn't quick. It was deep, passionate, and I didn't pull away. My hands found his shoulders, and for a moment, I forgot everything, John, my marriage, my promises. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless. "We can't do this," I whispered, but my voice lacked conviction. "I know," Alex said, his voice low. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, Sarah, but I wasn't sorry. Not in that moment." And that scared me more than anything. The weeks that followed were torture. I was living two lives, one as the devoted wife and mother, and another as a woman consumed by guilt and desire. Alex and I didn't kiss again, but the tension between us was undeniable. When John was around, we acted normal. Alex was the helpful employee, and I was the busy mom. But when we were alone, our eyes would meet, and I'd feel that fire inside. Me burning brighter every day. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake next to John, listening to his steady breathing, and hate myself. He didn't know what I'd done, but I'd betrayed him. I'd broken the trust we'd built over 10 years. I thought about telling him, but the thought of his anger, his hurt, stopped me. What if he left me? What if he took Michael? I couldn't risk losing my family, but the secret was eating me alive. It was there when I kissed John goodnight, when I tucked Michael into bed, when I smiled at Alex as he mowed the lawn. It was a weight I carried everywhere, and it was getting heavier. Then, one day, everything got more complicated. I was looking for a charger in John's office when I saw his phone on the desk. A message notification flashed on the screen, and I don't know why, but I picked it up. The message was from a woman named Lisa. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow," it said, with a heart emoji. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through the messages, my hands trembling. They were flirty, intimate. John was seeing someone else. My husband, the man I'd vowed to love forever, was hiding something too. At first, I was furious. How could he do this to me? I was his wife. But then the irony hit. I was no better. I'd kissed Alex not once, but twice. I was keeping a secret just as big. We were both liars, living a marriage built on deception. I didn't confront John right away. I didn't know how. Part of me wanted to scream at him to demand answers, but another part felt like I had no right. I'd done the same thing. I kept quiet, and the silence between us grew. We went through the motions: dinner, bedtime stories, weekend errands, but I could feel the distance. I wondered if he felt it too. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. The secret was too heavy, like a stone in my chest. I had to tell John the truth, even if it destroyed everything. After dinner with Michael asleep and Alex gone for the day, I sat John down in the living room. "John, we need to talk," I said, my voice shaking. He looked up from his phone, frowning. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath. "I've been seeing someone." The words hung in the air. John's face went blank, like he didn't understand. "What do you mean, seeing someone?" I couldn't look at him. "It's Alex. I kissed him." "More than once." "When you were away?" "I'm so sorry, John. I love you, but I messed up." Tears streamed down my face as I told him everything: the first kiss, the second, the way I felt around Alex. I didn't hold back. When I finished, there was silence. John just stared at me, his jaw tight. Then he spoke, his voice low. "I've been seeing someone too." I froze. Even though I'd seen the messages, hearing him say it was different. "Who?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Her name's Lisa. She works at the office. It started a few months ago. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. We sat there, two people who'd hurt each other, our secrets laid bare. I didn't know whether to cry or scream or walk away. Instead, we just looked at each other, the weight of our mistakes filling the room. The next few days were a blur. We didn't yell or fight, but the air between us was thick with pain. We agreed we didn't want to end our marriage, not yet. We still loved each other, despite everything. But we knew we couldn't go on like this. The first step was letting Alex go. It was hard, not just because of what had happened between us, but because he'd become part of our lives. Michael loved him, and even John had trusted him. But keeping him around was impossible. John called him and said we no longer needed his services, offering a generous severance. Alex didn't argue. He packed his tools and left quietly, his eyes meeting mine one last time as he walked out the door. Telling Michael was harder. "Where's Alex?" he asked a few days later, looking confused. "I got a new job," I said, forcing a smile. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was all I could manage. Michael nodded, but I could tell he missed him. That broke my heart even more. We also started marriage counseling. Our therapist, Dr. Carter, was a kind woman with a calm voice that made it easier to talk about the hard stuff. In our first session, she asked why I kissed Alex. I struggled to answer. "I love John," I said, "but he's always working." I felt alone, like we were drifting apart. "Alex?" He made me feel noticed. John looked hurt, but he didn't interrupt. When it was his turn, he admitted he'd felt disconnected too. "Lisa was there when I was stressed," he said. "She listened. It wasn't about love, it was a mistake." Hearing him talk about Lisa stung, but it also made me realize we'd both been lost in our own ways. We'd stopped talking, stopped really seeing each other. That's how we'd ended up here. Counseling wasn't easy. We had to dig into our feelings, our mistakes, our fears. Trust was the hardest part. After I told John about Alex, he didn't trust me the same way. If I was late coming home, he'd ask where I'd been. If I was on my phone, he'd glance over like he was checking. I couldn't blame him. I didn't fully trust him either. Not after Lisa. Dr. Carter told us trust takes time. You have to be patient, she said. And you have to show each other every day that you're committed. So we tried. John started coming home earlier. We had dinner together as a family. No phones, just talking. We took Michael to the park on weekends, played games, laughed. Slowly, the distance between us started to shrink. But there were still hard days. Some nights I'd think about Alex and feel a pang of guilt. Other times, I'd wonder if John was thinking about Lisa. We didn't let those thoughts linger. We pushed them away and focused on rebuilding. One evening, I asked John about Lisa. We were in bed, the house quiet. Who was she really? I asked. Sighed, staring at the ceiling. She's a coworker. We got close during a project. Wasn't serious, Sarah. I ended it before you told me about Alex. Did you love her? I asked, my voice small. No, he said firmly. I love you. I messed up, but it's you I want. His words didn't erase the pain, but they helped. I told him I felt the same, that Alex was a mistake, not love. We held each other that night, and for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Months passed, and things got better. We made new rules for our marriage. No secrets, no hiding feelings. Something bothered us, we talked about it. Right away. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes we argued, sometimes we cried, but it made us stronger. Michael was happier too. He stopped asking about Alex, and he loved having both his parents around more. We took him to the zoo, went on bike rides, built a fort in the living room. Seeing him smile made everything worth it. A year after the truth came out, John and I took a trip together, just the two of us. Michael stayed with my sister, and we went to a small beach town for a weekend. We walked along the shore, the waves crashing at our feet, and talked about our future. I wanted to grow old together, to be there for Michael, to build something stronger than before. On the last night, John surprised me. We were at a little restaurant by the water, and he pulled out a small box. Inside was a new wedding ring, simple but beautiful. I want us to start fresh, he said. It's a new ring for a new beginning. Tears filled my eyes. I hadn't expected this. After all the pain, the guilt, the hard work, we were here choosing each other again. I love you, I said, my voice breaking. I love you too, he replied. We put the past behind us that night. It wasn't forgotten. Some scars never fade, but we didn't let it define us anymore. Today, John and I are closer than ever. Our marriage isn't perfect, but it's real. We talk, we laugh, we fight sometimes, but we always work through it. We still go to counseling every few months just to keep things strong. Michael is 9 now, full of energy and questions. Doesn't remember much about Alex, and I'm grateful for that. I want him to grow up in a home filled with love and honesty. Sometimes I think about the past, about Alex, about Lisa, about how close we came to losing everything. Those thoughts don't stay long. I've learned to let them go, to focus on the life we have now. John and I made mistakes, but we learned from them, became stronger because of them. Marriage is hard. It's not a fairy tale, it's a choice you make every day. Some days are easy, some are tough. But if you love someone, really love them, you can get through anything. John and I are proof of that. Our home is full of love and laughter again, and that's all I ever wanted. We're not perfect, but we're real. And that's enough.